Hello, hello. This is the next in the re-recording of all my solution videos. Re-recorded all of them because I included hints in Logic Master's posts on the website. I keep giving this blurb at the start of every video because I'm re-recording all of them. I'm getting kind of close to the end. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for the variant Sudoku 101 Series 1, so I'm considering starting to try to monetize what I'm doing a little bit through like Patreon and maybe putting the detailed solution videos with hints for the series releases like that, maybe behind the Patreon. Not entirely sure. Haven't really gotten that far yet. I'm going to give myself a day or two to think about that. This is the last like normal release puzzle that I've done chronologically before getting to that point. So I've released some normal puzzles ever since then. After I'll do the videos for probably in a day or two. But yeah, if you watch this, let me know what you think on that idea. I'm probably going to either just decide on my own regardless, but if anyone has input, feel free. So I provide two versions of this puzzle, one that's a bit more colorblind friendly. Granted, I don't really understand all of the differences with colorblindness and the different types that exist, but there are different types of lines in this puzzle, so just to be on the safe side, this version has acronyms above the lines just to be safe, clarifying which one is which. So figured that would be a safe idea. So I'll just solve on that one here just for the sake of it. And we have a lot of rules in play in this puzzle, and you can kind of consider hint 0 is don't forget the rules. Almost every time I've seen someone solve this, they find at least one point in the solve where they forget about one of the rules. And, like, obviously it's easy enough for me to say that as the creator to don't forget the rules, haha. But, like, just do your best. Just always, if you ever feel stuck, immediately go back to the rules and ask, have I used top right boy everywhere? Have I used regional constraints everywhere, etc.? So let's actually go through the rules. So we have normal Sudoku rules, 1 to 9 everywhere. Dynamic fog, once we place things in the fog, fog will clear, no guessing is required. That just means don't go to a cell like this and just put all the numbers in until you clear the fog. Like, that's not the point of doing a logic puzzle. I'm going to skip over these two rules for now because they're global and they affect other rules. Renban lines, digits placed along purple line must be a non-repeating set of consecutive digits in any order. So this could be something like 2, and then like 3 and 4, like that. That would be a consecutive set of numbers, even though it's going 3, 2, 4. The overall set of them is consecutive. Killer cages, digits in dotted line cages must sum to the number in the top left corner of the cage. For clarity in this puzzle, this means the leftmost cell of the top row. Normally we would just say top left, but in this case, again, in this puzzle, it matters. We're using top right stuff, and we're also doing top left stuff. So that is clarifying that left takes priority over top, effectively. You first go to the leftmost cell of the top row of the cage. So you go up, then left all the way. And you can see that's where the total is. Digits may not repeat within a cage. Ratio pairs. Digits separated by a black dot must have one digit be double the other, which is a 2 to 1 ratio. So this would be half or double of whatever this is. German whispers, we don't have one yet, but if we had one in here, adjacent digits on a green line must have a difference of at least 5. So whatever's in the center here, each of the other ones would have to be at least 5 away from it. Arrows, digits on an arrow must sum to the digit placed in that arrow's circle. So if we determine this was the arrow tip, maybe use that like an X or something, these two numbers would sum to the circle. For interaction with other rules, an arrow's circle should be considered part of the arrow. So we will come back to that in a moment when I go over the other rules. Lastly, maximum. Purple cells must be greater than all orthogonally adjacent cells. So if we work out that, like, this one is a maximum cell, meaning this is purple, if we just, where's coloring? Maybe use this one. If that's purple, then we would know that this must be greater than all of these digits, because those are the 4 orthogonally adjacent cells. And then it clarifies only the maximum cells themselves interact with other rules. So once again, come back to that in a moment. Let's go back up to the global rules now. So we have 2 in play. The easier one to explain is regional constraints. No digit may appear more than once on each clue type. For example, if a cage contains a 2, no other cage can contain 2s. So it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Top right boy is the main one here. For every clue in the grid, the rightmost cell of the top row of that clue must have its largest digit. For example, a 2x2 cage would require its largest digit in the top right cell. Similar with this cage, this would need to be the biggest digit of whatever 3 digits go inside this cage here. This Renban, assuming this is the top right of it, assuming it doesn't go like up there or something, then this would need to be the biggest cell on that Renban. So we had a couple things talk about how the rules affect things. So the maximum cell, it says only the maximum cells themselves interact with other rules. So that is saying these 4 cells outside of it don't need to follow top right boy rule, and they don't need to follow regional constraints. Only the purple cell has to follow that. Similar for the arrow, where it's specified that the arrow circle should be considered part of the arrow. That means if you're viewing the arrow as a restraint as a whole, you would say this whole entire thing needs to follow top right boy, and the whole thing needs to follow regional constraint. The circle is not separate to that. And so, with us being almost 6 minutes into this, we can actually start the puzzle, because there's a lot of rules here, and I wanted to make sure I went over all that. So, we will immediately jump into hint number 1, which begins by saying, always be thinking about both top right boy and regional constraint. Then it says the Renban lines are an example of a clue that requires thinking about both rules. Regional constraint means one will be 1, 2, 3, another will be 4, 5, 6, and another will be 7, 8, 9. Then apply top right boy. So if we kind of logic our way through why that's true, we'll think of it this way. We see the lines doing this, and we see the line doing that, and we see the line doing that. We can't repeat digits on the Renbans. These collectively are 3, 3, and 3. So even though we can't see where the lines are going, we can say this is the extent of those lines. Because if it went any further, we would be using more than 9 Sudoku digits among the 3 lines individually. So given that, we have 9 digits to cover, with them being grouped into 3 different sets of 3 consecutive numbers. So that means one of them has to be 1, 2, 3, the other has to be 4, 5, 6, and the last has to be 7, 8, 9. That's just the only way to break up those digits. The biggest one of this grouping is a 3, the biggest of that is a 6, the biggest of that is a 9. So that tells us these top right portions, which are supposed to be the biggest, these are limited to 3, 6, or 9. Now the others we could technically put like 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. That is way overkill for pencil marking, so not going to do that. But I am going to get rid of these lines because it's kind of obscuring the pencil marks a little bit. Cool, so that's what hint 1 kind of draws your attention to. I will say all 3 of the beginning hints here all relate to the break-in. There's only 1 hint for after that, because the break-in requires a lot of work here. So now hint 2 points us towards the 19 cages. Hint number 2 says, the shape of the 19 cage in box 8, which is this, is deducible through the wording of the killer cage rule. Let's first address that. We don't see where the cage is going, but we do see it doesn't go to the right at least. So it definitely at minimum does this. The question then is, does the cage maybe go upwards into here? And the answer to that is no, because the killer cage rule specified the whole thing about leftmost cell of the top row of the cage. So that is saying that the total here being displayed on the top left part of this here, that is the leftmost cell of the top row of the cage. So if the cage went up here, the total would have to display in this corner of this cell, which it does not. So because it displays here instead. So we can say this cage definitely is like this. So we can maybe draw that around that, just to remind ourselves of that fact. And then the rest of hint 2 says, then think about how you could have both 19 cages coexist without breaking regional constraint. So there's a lot of ways you can mental math your way through this. I'm just going to use the killer cage calculator to save time here and make it easier. You could, you could definitely go through this just thinking about the numbers and the options within them. But so if we look through all the options here, the cage calculator doesn't work for this one because Sudoku Pad doesn't know that we know about where the cage is going. But if we look here, let's say we said this was 289 like this. As you see, all of these options for cages involve an 8 or a 9. So if we were to use this 289 option, it would not be possible to have a second cage exist without repeating digits. So that means we are not using 289. 379 is possible, because we could do 379, and then 568 is unaffected by that. So we could compare those, combine those together. 469 is another one that breaks, because if we use 469, you can see 469 takes up all 5 of the options here. So it is definitely not 469. And 478 has again the same issue. If you use 478, you don't have any digits left over to sum to 19 a second time. So that actually definitively proves we have to have one of these cages be 379, and the other has to be 568. And again, use our top right boy rule. we know now that these two cells must be the biggest cells, so those must be 8 and 9 collectively, because of those two options, 8 and 9 are the two biggest numbers. So we now know the other two cells in each, one will be 3, 7, the other will be 5, 6. Don't know which is which, that's probably just worth pencil marking. And this now gives us a neat little combination of digits here. I believe this is what we call a Y-wing, because we have this sort of Y shape where we have, it's kind of like an upside down Y. We know that these are different, 8 and 9. This cell sees both of them. This cell cannot be a 9 now, just by the fact that if we did have a 9 here, we would have to put 2 8s here, and that breaks the regional constraint rule. So, with that in mind, now we can move on to hint number 3. Again, very linear set of hints here. Hint number 3 says, you should be able to get the 2 black dots whittled down to 4 digit total. Then look for a cell that sees all 4 of the dotted cells. So let's actually look at the black dots, because we haven't even looked at those at all yet. Top right boy rule, in the case of black dots, means that the top portion here has to be bigger than that. And similar here, this would have to be bigger than the left part. So, we have a couple options. This is either 1 with a 2 above it, a 2 with a 4 above it, a 3 with a 6 above it, or 4 with an 8 above it. We have the same thing down here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2, 4, 6, 8. Now it says we should be able to whittle down the black dots to 4 digits total. Now, as it currently stands, it's more than that. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. So 6 digits here. So we need to somehow remove 2 of them. And again, the hint didn't tell you how to do it, but it at least nudges you in that direction. So, the way we need to look at this is, when we took out 9 from the center, this makes it impossible for this dot to be 3, 6. Because it would break this cell. 3, 6 comes out from there. Similarly, this cage is either, remember if we had the 2 options, we have 3, 7, 9, 5, 6, 8. If you notice, either way, we're either using a 3 or a 6, no matter which way the cage ends up being. So if we made this black dot a 3, 6, it would be impossible to fill either of those cage options. So that means this black dot also cannot be 3, 6. And this now means this is either 1 with a 2, 2 with a 4, or 4 with an 8. Same up here, 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 8. We could do slightly better, though. This is worked down, but we could do one more deduction here. Remembering regional constraint applying here. What would happen if we made this a 2, 4, for example? If we made that a 2, 4, the only digits left for this black dot would have to be 1 and an 8, which is not valid. And the same would happen in the opposite direction. If we did 2 here, 4 there, this would then have to be 1, 8, and that doesn't work. So we can actually take out 2 and 4 as an option for all of them. That step is not technically necessary, but it makes the pencil marking a little bit easier to clean up in a moment. It's one less step I kind of have to think about then. The final part of hint 3 there, again, said look for a cell that sees all 4 of the dotted cells. So we have these 2 and these 2. So you want to find a spot that sees all 4 of these. And the answer to that is the top right of this cage sees all 4 of those cells. It sees 1, 4, 2, 8 there, 1, 4, 2, 8 here. Meaning this cannot be an 8. Because if we did have an 8, then you wouldn't be able to make either of these black dots be a 4, 8 black dot. So that is a 9. And that's now going to unwind a huge amount of information here. We're going to get like somewhere around 20 digits, I think. Because we now know this is the 3, 7, 9 cage. That must be the 8, 5, 6 cage. 9 comes out from here. So that now means that's a 3 or 6, that's a 3 or 6. So this must be the 9 up here. With a 7 or an 8 surrounding it. We have 7, 8 in that order. That gives us 2 and 1. 4 and 8. That now gives us, this is probably worth pencil marking now, this is either 1, 2, or 4, 5, but it can't be a 1 or a 2 on the bottom side there, so this is definitely not the 3. That is 6 with 5, 4 like that, 5, 6 over here. And then finally, this now has to be the 3 with 1, 2, 7, and 3. And so now, we're not totally there yet, and that's because I've been ignoring the 7 cage up here. And I did that kind of intentionally to sort of, in reverse order here, like, demonstrate the fact that the 7 cage is not as important as I thought it was in the solve. My impression when I was drafting this was that the 7 cage was necessary to think about before you get any of the rest of this. Clearly that's not the case, because I just didn't even think about it here. So there's some people who solved this on YouTube so far that have thought about the 7 cage and gotten some extra deductions early by thinking about it. And I like that. I like that it's possible for you to sort of take 2 different routes through the break-in. It all still depends on getting this whole black dot reduction figured out. But yeah, this is I found easier to think about, because now we only have 3 digits left available for the 7 cage. We've used up 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the only digits left that could possibly go up in a 7 cage is a 1, 2, and a 4. And there's no way to sum to 7 without just using all 3 of those. So we know for sure that this is a 3-cell 7 cage. Because again, there's no way to combine the digits to get to 7 otherwise. So the question then is, what shape does this cage take? We know it starts here and it goes to at least here. And so we can at least pencil mark this as a 1 or a 2. That could be a 1, 2, or a 4. Can't be that. We already just know the order now. That has to be a 1. That has to be a 4. And that tells us the cage must go downwards. So that must be a 2 there. That's a 1. That's a 2. And that now clears a bunch of fog and gives us some new information to work with. That is the end of the break-in here. So that was a huge goal of mine, was to make a puzzle that requires a good 4 or 5 different deductions of pencil marks before you get digits, and then you get a huge flurry of stuff revealed. So we got 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And another 6 there. That's 22 digits placed. So it's a good reward for kind of starting out the puzzle. So let's focus on the German Whisper over here now. So we try to figure out the polarity of this. We don't know the exact way it'll go, but we do know that this can't be 2, 4, and it can't be 1, 3 either. So this must be a high digit. That's either 7, 8, or 9. That makes this a low. Must be a 3, which means that's not a 7. This is also a low. Can't be a 4 because we'd have double 9s here. That's 6, 7, 8, 9. Can't be 6 or 8. This now is another opportunity where we can use the top right boy rule. Because we now know, again, just from that rule, this has to be the biggest part of this German Whisper line. So it has to be bigger than whatever this is. So in other words, there's no way that this can be 9. That has to be 8. In order for this cell to be bigger than that, that has to be 9. This is still ambiguous, whether that's a 1 or a 2 for now. So now we can look over at the arrows, because that's really the only other spot we can look at now. And hint 4 is what the arrows are concerned with. So hint 4 says, the arrows are specially affected by top right boy. Think about where the circle must be in relation to the arrow itself. This is probably my favorite part of this puzzle, that I kind of came across this implication of the rules. So we have an arrow here, and it's going down to here. Now, we don't know where the circle is. But what we can say is, because of the rules that clarify a circle should be considered part of the arrow, the circle must be the biggest part of the arrow collectively. So we go down here. Where is the top right of this arrow? The top right of the arrow would have to be here, effectively, because it's certainly going to here, so this is no longer possible for this to be the top right of it. This is not the furthest you could go in the top right direction. Because remember, the rule says the rightmost cell of the top row of that cage must be its largest digit. And that is the rightmost cell of the top row of the cage then, but this is not a circle. So the circle has to be the biggest part. We haven't seen the circle yet, so that proves the arrow must go down here and then come back up and have the circle in the corner here. We have the exact same thing happening with this arrow here as well, where we have 2 cells, and it dips down here. We know it has to come back up at some point in order for the circle to be the top right of the arrow. Now this one's a little more ambiguous at first glance, because what if the circle is up here? That would seemingly be valid. But if we did that, we would have the arrow taking up 4 cells into that. And as soon as we have 4 cells on an arrow in the same box, that ends up being minimum 1, 2, 3, 4. The circle would have to contain a 10. That doesn't work. So that is not what happens. The circle must be here and there. I'm not going to draw the actual lines themselves. So that is enough that we can maybe start pencil marking these a little bit. So we have 3 cells here. So this is going to be at least a 6, and it can't be 6 or 8. And this is 2 cells here, so a minimum would be 1 and 2. Meaning this would be at least a 3. And it can't be anything bigger than 6 because we've used up 7, 8, 9 in the box. I'm going to get rid of the circles too, just for pencil marking. So still a little ambiguous what these could be, but we could at least look at these options and question what if maybe this is 7. Let's also pencil mark all the options here, just so we have them available. So if this was a 7 arrow, this would have to be 1, 2, 4. So if let's just run that scenario, that would become a 7. And that would take out 1, 2, and 4 from appearing on this part of the arrow just by regional constraint. That would leave us with a way too inflated number, because the minimum we could make this arrow sum to is a 3 and a 5, summing to 8, and there is no way to put 8 here. So that immediately breaks the puzzle. We know for sure it's not a 7 arrow, because that would result in that happening. This must be 9. Now there's three different ways you can sum to 9, but one of them is invalid. So we could either do 1, 3, 5. That would be valid. Could be 1, 2, 6, but it can't be because we have a 6 there. Or it's 2, 3, 4. So let's type those options. It's 1, 3, 5 or 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 5, 2, 4. This cannot be 3, 4, 5. Neither of those can be 5. So the fact that we can't even put a 5 here either, I can't believe I missed that quicker. We can't have a 5. So this just is a 2, 3, 4 arrow. And the only one of those that works down here is that must be a 2. And that now tells us 2, 3, 4 comes out from this portion of the arrow up here. And that leaves us with a 5, 6 pair here, meaning that must be a 1. And the only way to resolve this now is that has to be a 5, summing to 6 there. And that now deals with the arrows. So the arrows are, again, one of my favorite parts of this. I think it's really cool, the idea of them coming down and then having to come back up. We can start to get some classic Sudoku caught up a little bit now. 2 in this top right box can't go in the bottom because of this 2 over here. So that must be a 2. This needs a 3 and a 4. This needs to be 1 and 7. Then this also needs to be 1 and 7, except we know the order of this one. 1 and 7 here takes out 1 from here, so that must be a 2. And that's about it for weak spots for now, so let's focus on this green German Whisper line now. So we know from top right boy that the bigger digit has to be on top, so we know this is low, that must be high. That's not 8, that's not 2 or 3. It seems at first glance like this would be kind of anything, but we do have a 3, 4 pair in the column, so that cannot be 4, that must be 1. That gives us 7 over here, 1 there. 7 bounces back down here, and this is now either 6 or 9. And we have regional constraint. Once again, don't forget the rules. So we have a 9 over here on this German Whisper. This cannot be another 9. This must be a 6. That now reveals our final set of clues over here with the maximum cells, hence why they're marked M. The main reason they're purple is mostly because I originally just had them revealed normally, and I thought the arrows weren't like the most obvious thing in the universe, that they were just kind of sitting there. I wanted the cells to be highlighted when they revealed so people could even notice that. A lot of times when fog clears, people just kind of miss it, especially if they don't have the animation on like I do here, where it kind of does the puff of smoke. And the original version had them kind of colored a dark gray, and I just kind of failed to realize how hard that is to tell the difference between normal fog and a cell like that. So I made them purple now. If we go back to maximum, purple cells must be greater than all orthogonally adjacent cells. So this number has to be bigger than all of its neighbors. We don't even have to think about it much, because this is an 8, so that just has to be a 9. So this one seems a little bit redundant, almost. But the benefit of that is we now know that this cannot be a 9 itself. So what could this be? It can't be 1, 2, 3, or 4, because they're all in the row. It could be 5, it could be 6, can't be 7, because that's in the row, and it could be 8 or 9. So in order to do much more to work this out, we're going to have to start doing a lot of pencil marking. So let's look at what this cell could be. That can't be 7 or 9. This could be a 3, can't be a 4, can't be a 5, 6 or 7. This could be 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. And this is a 1. So we can already do a little bit of work here. The fact that this is a minimum 5 means there's no way this could be a 5 itself, because then there's no way for this to be bigger than what this is. So that is at least 6. It also can't be a 9, as we said from there, which also means this now can't be an 8, because then there's nothing that this could be. Similar, this can't be an 8. So we're doing a lot of work already, but we need to now look a little elsewhere to fully resolve this. So let's start looking at other areas, like finishing this column. We need a 5 or a 6 there. That must be a 5 or a 6. And that actually just gives it to us right away. I thought there was a little more work required, but this now becomes a 6. And for this to be bigger, that now has to be 8. And you can see I did a nice big puff of smoke release there, so that way everything is now cleared. That was really just a symbolic thing. I was debating adding that to my other puzzles. I never got around to doing that. It's just a yay, you did it kind of thing. Because now you know there's no more hidden clues to be revealed. It's just normal Sudoku at this point. So this row needs 5 and 7. Oh, not 5 and 7. 5 and, what is it? 5 and 9. That's 9, that's 5. This row here needs a 3, 6, and a 7. And up here, we need a 3, 7, and an 8. That's not... Oh my god, that's terrible pencil mark. That's not a 3. That's not getting us anywhere. How about this? We need a 1, 5, 9. No, we're not. Oh my god, I'm terrible at this today. 1, 5, and 4. That's what it is. No 1 over there. 4 and 5 here. 3 and 4 here. This is not a 3. That's definitely a 2. This row needs 3 and 9. This needs 7 and 8. That's 7, that's 8. That's 3, 6 pair over here now, so that's 7. No 7 over here. That's 8, that's 3. Here's 4, 7, 9 up here. 9, 7, 4. 3, 9 here. 6, 9 there. Or 6, 3 there. This column needs a 6 and 7. This column needs a 4, 5, 8. This column needs 1 and, what is it, 5? This needs 2 down here and then 6 there. This column has a 3, 4 pair looking down here, so this is the only one left that needs to be a 9, it looks like. This row needs a 2 and a 3. That's 3, that's 2. That's going to sort out the 3, 4 up here. Now we have 4 left over here. That is a 4, 5, 7, 8. That's 8, that's 7, that's 4, that's 5, and then 4 and 8 over here. As it ends, it just settles top right boy. So, this is one of my favorite puzzles that I made. I think I probably said that earlier in the video, but I just really like the beginning steps of doing all that work just to get like 20 digits at once. It's very satisfying. Yeah, this was made originally as more or less a meme, hence why the title is just I am a boy. But am I top right? I'm not sure. Because like even I don't really know what was going on here. It was just a meme. We all just made top right boy puzzles. It was really fun. So I came up with my little twist on it here and made my own version of the rule. I feel like you could do a lot more interesting things with this. So who knows, maybe someday I'll do a sequel to it. But until then, thank you for watching.